Welcome everyone to another edition of Clay's Couch. I'm your host, Clay D, the one and only, coming at you the best way I know how. And I am happy tonight to have with me as a guest the wonderful Miss Mia LaMotte, who is an image and consultant and brand strategist. Thank you for joining the virtual couch tonight, Mia.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Clay. What's up?
Good, good, good. How about yourself? Where are you at right now, Mia?
Well, I wanted to stick with the theme, so I'm on a couch, right? But that couch happens to be in Todos Santos, Mexico.
Oh wow, how lovely! It's a lot better than most of the country right now over here in the continental U.S. So I'm sitting on a drafty couch right now. So you're in a nice, warm, sunny weather. I certainly do not envy you for that at all. Hope you're enjoying yourself. But thank you for joining Clay's couch tonight, Mia. So if you could just introduce yourself to the audience, just tell us who you are, what Mia is about, and if you can just tell us what you've been up to lately as well.
Absolutely. So I had so many hats in my lifetime that I've worn, but the one that I'm wearing right now, and I think the one that's probably the most rewarding for me, is the one of transformational coach. So, as an image consultant, I was trained as an image consultant a little bit over 12 years ago. And what I realized, like with my clients, is like that wasn't enough. They needed more inner work and they needed to really feel good about themselves in a way that would translate into how they showed up in person and how they showed up in the way they dressed, the way they spoke, the way they interacted with other people. And I set on this journey. And then what I realized is that, oh, this is really good. Nobody else is doing this quite the way that I'm doing it. And so we implement a lot of transformational practices before we even get into the esoteric part of branding.
Wonderful. Now, just for the audience's sake, you've run Lamont International over in Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've been in Raleigh for well, in North Carolina for over 14 years.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm originally from Louisiana. And yeah, Raleigh's home now. And that's where LaMotte International is home
Yeah.
base. Yep.
Wonderful. That's definitely great to hear. And I would just ask Mia, as far as brands go, what type of brands do you work with? And just tell me what's the background behind that. Obviously, personal branding is part of your forte, but what type of just brands in general do you work with? Is it mostly personal brands? Do you also work with businesses, corporations, nonprofits, etc.? If you can just delve into that a little more.
Absolutely. I typically work with entrepreneurs one on one. Oftentimes, I will have a small business that I'll work with. So it's either I will give a presentation or they want me to come in and do some work around uniforms or company policy or employee appreciation. And just recently, I've had an opportunity to work with a company on their rebranding and really getting into the heart of the company so that we can expand it to some other brands. So, I'm up for any challenge, and but mostly I work with entrepreneurs one on one or in a group setting.
Okay, so with that being said, what type of entrepreneurs do you love to work with and why?
I love working with other coaches, other consultants, people who are in the personal development space because it's an easier way for me to communicate with them because they kind of know some of the language that I'm going to be saying. With that being said, sometimes they can be jaded and they won't really show up in a way that's powerful for them. And therefore, we have a lot more work to do. So they're kind of depending on me to do the heavy lifting for them. And that's not really how the relationship goes.
I gotcha. So with that being said as well, do you have any experiences working with startups and or established companies? Obviously, you mentioned you love working with entrepreneurs, and that's who you work with a lot of the times. But what experience, if you can elaborate more or walk us through, that you have with startups and more established companies?
Yeah, it's more of established companies, not really startups. I don't specialize in that. I'm really good at helping people hone in on what their gift is and where their magic lies. And then we brand from that, from a place of authenticity. So with companies, it's really the same thing. So whoever is driving the bus, so to speak, at the small to big companies, I've worked with companies that are as small as 5 employees, as big as 250. And that's about as big as I've done. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I realize is like when we can hone in on who is running the company, because that's usually the company's brand. And if it's not, I work with them to make sure all of that is aligned. Because when you have a personal brand or a person who is running a company and they're not, and it's not the same as what the actual company values are, you have a mixed message, and people get confused about who you are, what you're up to. So I wanted to make sure that they were able to convey that message, and that's pretty much how that relationship started. And then I came in to do employee training and again help them with policy and procedure and things like that.
That sounds great. What would you say is the most relevant market trend for most of your current clients?
Being themselves. A lot of us will follow the trends, right? TikTok is number one right now over Google. And, a lot of entrepreneurs will be like, oh my God, I got to get on TikTok now. I got to go do this. And
Right.
if TikTok is not aligned with who you are, or you already have a great audience somewhere else, it may make sense for you to go to TikTok, or it may make sense for you not to go to TikTok. So really knowing yourself very well and checking in and trusting yourself to know that you're going to be in the right place at the right time to attract the right person to you is the only trend I will say that there is in branding or marketing, honestly.
Wow. So, with all of that said, and since you mentioned that you are a transformational coach as well as work with and pretty much work on the images of your clients, how do you react when clients disagree with any of your suggestions?
Well, and I'm so glad you asked this question because I think the 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 general public may believe that what I say is gospel or what another consultant or coach is saying is gospel. But here's the truth. The truth is that you have to check in with yourself and put it through your filter. So if I'm giving someone advice or strategy or anything like that, and they don't agree with me, I'm going to ask some clarifying questions, right? Just so I can understand their mindset, understand why they're saying what they're saying. And once I understand where they're coming from, I respond to that. But ultimately, Clay, it's their choice, it's their business, it's their brand. And on the flip side of that, I am the expert and you did hire me for a reason, right? So it's a relationship and you get to do what you're going to do with your business. But if it's something egregious, if it's something that's like way out of left field that I don't agree with, and I might have to step back and say, you know what, I think that we might not be a good fit. But I try to do most of that work up front before we even get started.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely can understand it for sure. How people, folks, may want to bring you on, but they may think that they want someone, but then all of a sudden they want to start micromanaging for sure, and then you were just like, well, you brought me on. Let's not forget you called me. So that's
Yeah,
I could definitely
absolutely. And
imagine.
not to be arrogant about it, right? It's more about like I am the expert. Like this is what I study all day, every day, and do this, right? And you have an opinion based on your industry or whatever, like whatever it is that they're trying to get through. And yeah, and if it's a relationship, we get to have a conversation, which is why I love doing discovery calls so I can see if people are going to be a good fit. If you're not open minded, don't even bother calling.
Right, right, for sure. Now, prior to working on this journey, as I'll call it, did you do any type of public relations or marketing work similar to this prior to you I guess I would ask, being an entrepreneur, like, did you work as a corporate public relations director somewhere? If you have a background like that, that's before Mia Lamont International, explain to the audience what that was like before obviously having your own business in this regard.
Absolutely. It was not PR. Although there was a lot of PR involved, I was in court administration for over 20 years before I
Court
decided
administration.
to take the leap and do this. So there was a lot of supervision of staff, and there was some contact with the media, but it wasn't really heavy. We would send out press releases and things like that. And then before I made the jump, I did work for the state and did a lot of troubleshooting and working with judges in the district court level and family court level. So there was a lot of PR that was done internally, not necessarily, you know, letting people know what we were up to, kind of things. Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's certainly must have been the experience there for sure. But what made you want to chart your own course and have your own business? What made you want to have Mia Lamont International and have your own personal branding company and all?
It's a great question. I had an experience with a transformational trainer. And while in the training, this was probably maybe about 15 years ago, in the training, you know, he's like, if you could design your life, and I tell my clients this, like, if you have $1 million in the bank, what would you be doing? Would you be doing what you're doing now? And for me, the answer was no, right? And I needed to figure out what that actually was. And so it took me, you know, a couple Google searches to see what an image consultant was. And so I went through iteration of image consultant, stylist, color analysis, color analyst, to like, I really want to do this in a deeper, meaningful way because that's more aligned with my personality. And so the transformational piece was just a natural fit for it. So as I have gone down this road for myself, I've developed the skills and done the trainings and been certified and done all of these things in order to deliver it to my clients as well. So it started with a seed at a transformational training, and then it turned into this, what it is today.
Wow, amazing, impressive. I would ask if you could just define branding. What
Sure.
is branding to you, Mia? How would you define it? What is your definition?
Yeah, I think a lot of people believe branding is a logo, a website, things like that, and it absolutely is. But those are just like small pieces of it. The biggest piece of branding for me is a person's mindset. So when I look at your brand, I want to know what your values are. I want to know what you care about. I want to know who you are. Do you know who you are? Are you really in touch with self? Right. So we'll do that work first, which is all in the mindset. And then we'll get into, what do you look like? Is your appearance conveying the same message that you say, the person that you say that you are? Right. And then we get into your behavior, communication skills, and then online presence, which is going to be the website, which is going to be your social media. There's so many other things that factor into it that, you know, I love to look at it from a holistic standpoint.
Got it. Well, thank you for all that there, and we will be right back. We're gonna take a break right here on Clay's Catch. We'll be back with more of Mia Lamont. All right, welcome back to Clay's Couch here. I'm your host, Clay D, the one and only, coming at you the best way I know how. And we're going to continue our conversation here with founder and CEO of LaMotte International, Mia LaMotte. Thank you for joining me again. Now, for those who may have just joined on to this live stream here and this conversation, can you tell the audience what type of branding consultation services do you offer, Miss Mia?
Well, right now, I offer intensives, which is where we're working one on one together and we're discovering, uncovering, we're getting in deep, taking a deep dive into all of the things that I just talked about, who you are, how do you want to appear in the world, what does your social media look like. I'm going to do that homework first and then come with my suggestions, but also trying to understand, like, what do you really need, because everybody doesn't need everything, right? Some people only need a social media strategy, some people might need a website refresh, some people may need um, everything. And so if the people who need everything, I typically put them into one of my group programs, because that's where they're going to learn the most and actually catapult a whole lot faster because it's more intensive. Yeah.
I see. So, with that being said, and if you could just reiterate, do you feel everyone needs brand strategy consulting, or it really just depends on the particular individual or organization?
I do believe that everybody needs a strategy. They might not necessarily need it from me, right? Because I'm not going to be a great fit for everyone.
Right.
The thing I will say though is that if you feel like you're flailing in the market and that you're not really sure how to market yourself, you might not have a brand, right? So a lot of people take branding and marketing and they collapse it. And really, the branding work needs to be done before you begin to market yourself. Unless you are like, I'm just getting out there, I have to do it, and you're going to do it simultaneously, right? So you need, I don't like to use the word need, but it's important to have a brand so people can understand who you are before you put yourself out there. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying do it simultaneously if you're already out in the market.
Sure. And you're known as the brand disruptor. How did that come about, and why are you referred to as the brand disruptor?
Well, it's because I'm disrupting the status quo when it comes to the way you see yourself, number one. And also status quo when it comes to branding. A lot of people see branding as the assets, but really the brand is you. And how do you connect yourself to the product, to the market, to whatever it is that you're selling, and have people get you, but also get themselves. And that is a disruption in the way that we've done things. If you think about a job interview, most of us have gone into job interviews um, being different or being conforming to the actual job description and what we think the culture of the company is and what we believe that we should be doing or what we should be saying in order to get the job, instead of having the employer sell us on working there, right? So it's two very different ideas, and the latter is what I would be teaching you, like to really think about who you are, what do you want, who do you want to work with, instead of settling for what we've settled for in the past. And I think, this whole day and age, especially with the pandemic right now, we can absolutely see how people are no longer settling for status quo and they're going for what they actually want.
I see. What are your thoughts just overall, with that being said, on the Great Resignation? Do you feel the ball is more in the court of the job seeker? You feel the job seeker has the leverage more so now than ever from your experience? If you could just explain, your reaction and thoughts on what's been going on, obviously, within that world for the probably better part of 2 years now.
Yeah, I think employees are starting to notice that, you know what, I want to have a life. And I don't want my life to be centered around my work. And I want to enjoy my work. And I want to know that I'm making a contribution. And I want to know that my employer cares about me. And it is on the employer, it is on the business owner or the corporation. And another trend that we're actually seeing, or another thing that we're seeing, is that employees want to be taught how to brand themselves to align with the mission of the company. So if there's anyone out there who is thinking that they need to be in the job market, like, that would be the first thing that I'll say to you. Like, make sure that whoever you're working for, you actually, the values that they have and the values that you have align, and then the rest of that stuff should fall into place. And people want to be poured into and not just taken away from.
Right, you're absolutely right on that, me for sure. Now, when it comes to your proposed brand strategies, do you have a one size fits all approach that maybe not necessarily that you give to everybody, just one blanket plan, but is there one common denominator with every brand strategy that could be applicable to anyone or anything out there?
Yeah, know yourself. Like, that's the biggest piece, and it might sound very simplistic, but it's not, because a lot of us have these masks that we wear when we go to certain places. Like I said, when we try to get a job, we pretend to be someone that we're not, or we put on our good suit and we show up. And I'm not saying those things aren't important when trying to go for a job. What I'm saying is that that's not typically how we show up, and it's not typically who we are. And we're seeing this switch into people being accepted for who they are. One of my favorite commercials right now has been done by LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's called Professionalism is Something, or We Are Professionals. And it has it has tattoos, it has afros, it has everybody from all over the world being accepted to go into this office, and it says, "Come as you are." And it I was like, oh my God, this is a really good job of explaining to people at this day and age that, the status quo and the blue three-piece suit or the blue two-piece suit or the show up to an office uh, situation is no longer going to be the workforce. Like, that's not where we're going with this anymore. People want to be able to express themselves in the way that they dress, and the way that they show up, and the way they communicate, in a way that's natural and not code switching. And people also want to have fulfilled careers and have lives. So things have changed a lot from, our parents going to get a good job so they can retire, so they can, do what they're going to do for the next 20 years. Like, people want to live their lives now.
Right. I definitely agree with you there for sure.
Yeah.
Now, as far as just with personal branding in general, obviously on LinkedIn for one, you could see kind of that in full display. But as far as what you're doing, do you have any kind of competition? Is there like a personal branding industry, for lack of better words, that you kind of see yourself up against, or are you more so you kind of have a, for lack of better words, a pseudo monopoly where you kind of don't really have anyone that you're going up against. I guess like the closest thing to a competition to you would be a public relations or a marketing firm. Is that safe to say?
I could see them that way, Clay, but honestly, I am the kind of person who believes that there is no competition. No one else out there can be me. No one
Mhm.
has had my experiences. They've not had my trainings, in the way that I did them. And there's enough for all of us. So even if the bigger companies go out and they get some of the clients that I would like to have, there's also room for me to grow, right? And work with people that may not want a big firm, people who might want to have someone who is hands on, or a CEO that they can actually see and talk to. So I don't believe that there's ever competition for me. And it's a scarcity mindset, and I just don't subscribe to that.
Right. Definitely hear you there. Is there an expected, or what is the expected return on investment that you assure to your clients once they retain you on board? Do you have, do you promise any type of ROI, or you say it's all about the type of work that you put in? This is a shared experience. You have to put in as much work as I'm putting into you. What's
Yeah,
the ROI that you kind of put out there when you're dealing with clients?
yeah, it's definitely a shared experience. I believe you do get what you put into something, especially when you're getting coached. Now, if you have a consultant, if I'm working with you as a consultant, like there are certain deliverables that I have to give to you as your consultant, but that's something that we've agreed upon. But when it comes to a coaching situation, people have to, or people get to step into their brilliance. And part of personal branding, from my point of view, is just that. Like we have to accept that we are brilliant right where we are, and we get to continue to grow, and that growth only happens through you. It doesn't happen because of me. I can only give you tips. I can only coach you, so much. You have to want this, and you also have to want to to do the work, because it is work.
Oh yeah, that's for sure, definitely. I would also ask, and I know you mentioned that, Bia, that you try to tell everyone that you work with to be themselves. However, when you're working with clients directly, do you try to customize your strategies and plans to fit their respective businesses or whatnot there? Meaning that, I guess what I'm really am getting at is, are you more industry specific when it comes to certain clients or individuals? Like, do you deal with a lot of CEOs or just regular employees? Like, what does that average type of client look like to you? Is it mostly men, mostly women? That's kind of a well-rounded question there, but if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So my Brand Disruptors program, coaching program, is for women, and I designed it for women based on my own experience as an entrepreneur, as someone who was trying to build a brand, and the things that came up for me, such as you know women being respected in the workplace and still being able to be women or feminine or whatever it is that you want to call it, right?
Hmm.
So I teach it from my own experience, but also my own expertise when it comes to knowing the right colors to wear, knowing what colors mean in your branding, and also like from the transformational space, like can you grow this brand, and is this really who you are? And people show up the way people show up. Um, Typically, Clay, that's who they are. We just need to take it and let them actually give them permission to be it.
Wow, that's right. I mean, no one can really beat you at being you. I would, as far as the timeline goes with clients, is how long this would you say it generally takes for your clients to really implement changes in their branding when they're open to your suggestions? Are there, if they're doing everything you ask them to do, on average, how long would you say it takes to see these changes reflected in the work?
It takes as long as it takes, and I believe that we're gonna answer this question when we come back from this break.
Okay.
Music, so
We,
we'll go
we
ahead.
will get back to you. We will get back to me with that on the other side of this break. But thank you for everyone for tuning in to Today's Couch with our special guest, Mia LaMotte, this evening. Welcome back to Clay's Couch here. I'm your host, Clay D, the one and only, coming at you the best way I know how. And we're continuing our conversation here with the lovely Miss Mia LaMotte here, CEO of LaMotte International. Now, before we went to break, the question I had posed to you, Mia, was how long does it generally take for your clients to implement changes in their branding when they're open to your suggestions? So what's the projected timeline? And you had start off by saying that it really takes as long as it needs to take per the specifics on that particular client. But yes, if you could just finish what you were saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had some clients for over 5 years. I've had some clients for 6 months, and they've left and gone on to do what they're going to do. I believe it really just depends on how much work gets to be done. Some people want the esoteric, they want the brand, they want the logo, they want the website, they want me to give them advice on that. And they don't want to do the deeper dive into the transformational part of this. And that's fine, right? They're typically not my clients, but if someone does, or they'll come to me with one specific goal, and we work on that goal from a brand perspective. So those people can come in three hours. It could be 3 months, or it could take 3 years. It really just depends on how deep you want to go and how much of this work you really want to be doing.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
With that, given that, what are I guess I would ask next is just based upon all of that. What are some of the biggest barriers that your clients face just in general? Or what typically has been a common theme or thread when if they've hit a wall? And you did mention that sometimes it can take clients years in
Yeah.
some cases, but if you can kind of pinpoint off the top of your head just what one common barrier or theme has been to the audience there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's gonna be the budget. It's typically always the budget. So when you're doing this work, all of this stuff costs money, right? In order to build a website, that's gonna cost you something. In order to take photographs for your website, that's gonna cost you money. In order to work with me, that's gonna cost you money. So all of these things, um, in tandem with you trying to become the best version of yourself, it gets pretty expensive. So I would say the biggest barrier is probably financing, and and we address that in my coaching. Like we talk about that. I help you figure out like how you can get funding, but also how to change your mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance, and how to really begin to see the fruits of that labor.
Wow, for sure, definitely. Given that, what results can someone, a client, get from a small budget or a larger budget? You just mentioned that you could get expensive and everything else along with that could get expensive. But can a client really achieve from a small budget, or pretty much it's just the larger the budget, the better? Meaning that I guess I'm asking, you work with big wigs or small fries or both, it really just all depends on the particular client and obviously the fits between the two of you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I would say that I work with both. Small fries in your language. Small fries tend to not have the vision, which is why they're still small, right? So if I could plant the seed of vision, or a seed of let's talk about strategy, about so how you can raise capital so you can get a website, or get your feet off the ground, or do better marketing tactics, or whatever the case might be, whatever the thing is that's going to help them to continue to make more money so they can continue to invest in themselves, because that's what this is. It's an investment in self. It's not just about the collaterals. It's not just about your website or your podcast or your this. It's about the person that you're becoming, right? Personal branding is not just the esoteric. It's who you are becoming in the process of doing this work.
I see, for sure. Given that you had mentioned that for one particular client or two, or at least that it takes years. I think you even mentioned 5 years. On
No,
average,
no,
if
I said she was with me for 5 years.
oh, with you for 5 years. Okay, okay. So let me make sure I got that out there.
Yeah, so she's been with me for 5 years because she likes doing the work.
I
The
got
more of this work that you do, the more of this work you realize you get to do, right? If I were to liken this to anything, it's almost like um, it's not therapy because it's coaching, right? But it's uncovering the things that have been holding you back from having the life that you say you want. And we're doing it through this personal branding vehicle.
mm, I definitely see that there for sure. So just in general,
Uh-huh.
obviously you work in personal branding. Do you work on any bit of personal branding for yourself? What I mean by that is, do you work on ways where you can become a better personal branding consultant, image consultant, and even a transformational coach? As
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am not, so I have a coach. I take programs, I do things throughout the year. One of the reasons why I'm here in Mexico is because this is the location that I'm in. It's one of those transformational places. And I'm here for meditation and retreats and things like that. So that when I come back and I'm in the workspace, I'm a better coach and I can help my clients a whole lot better from a place of knowing that I too am doing the work. When I work with other coaches and consultants, and they're trying to come up with a package and they're trying to come up with a thing they're going to sell, like I have to make sure that they've been through that transformation themselves.
wonderful.
Because I'm not going to let them teach something that they've only read about. I need them to teach something that they've embodied.
I see.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like if people who are listening or anyone who looks at this later on or anyone who wants to reach out to you,
Sure.
much as you want to provide on this meal, what is your fee structure like? And I'm not asking for like numbers and all that. I'm really am asking like for folks who may have the budget or may not, but what is your fee structure looking like? Are there hidden fees, or is everything just based upon whether or not certain ROIs have been hits? For as much as you're able to just delve in this particular conversation to the audience, so how does that all look? That structure look like
Yeah.
you're wanting to work with you?
Yeah. So group coaching can start at $395 a month, depending on what you pick. And consulting fees and coaching fees can go from anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000. It really just depends on the size of the project, who the project is for. Is it one-on-one, which is going to be more expensive than anything that I do in a group setting? Workshops, or you can see me in other people's um, places where I will give advice or give coaching. Like I believe that's how we met. I was part of a symposium or a conference, and I was one of the coaches for the round table, and people got coaching that way. So sometimes it's $0 or the cost of admission, Clay, or it's $100,000. It really just depends on the work that we're doing together. It depends on how deep a person wants to go, and it depends on how much work they need to do or get to do. And then the other thing that I'll say, or I'll add to this about the return on investment, you cannot, I don't believe that you can put a return on investment when it comes to your own personal growth. If you're putting in the work to develop yourself, like you should get that money back in spades right off top, right? I had a really good friend who lives in, where is she right now? She's in Trinidad. And one of the things that she said is she's like, if I can't make the money back that I invest in a program in the next 2 or 3 months after I go through the program, I don't do it. And for me, it's more about if I don't invest in myself, I'm not going to even have the confidence to go out to try to go and get the return on my investment. I think you have to make a commitment to yourself before you get into something that you're going to do it all the way, and you commit to yourself that you're going to make the money back. There isn't any like middle ground, right? You can't just be wishy-washy about your personal development and say, oh, I'm just going to wait to see like what's going to happen and if I'm going to get a return on my investment. No, you do the work and you go and you ask the questions, right? So in a group setting, somebody who's working with me, like a lot of people are afraid to look stupid or to ask the wrong thing. And so they'll sit there for 6 months and they won't get what they need from the coaching. And then there's some other people who will ask so many questions and they will get into analysis paralysis and they won't do anything. So I'm going to say, like, balance out for yourself. What is it? Like, you have to know what it is that you're trying to get from this or that you want to receive because you do this work. And then, like, let's talk about that. Like, if you say to me, Mia, I want $1 million business and you haven't even started yet, I'm going to have some questions, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I need to know what your mindset is going to, because your mindset is the thing that's going to stop you. Not me, not what I teach you, or not the coaching. It's what you believe you can actually do, right? Because whatever you believe you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. You go to the light switch, you turn on the lights, like it's dark in here now. I don't even know where the switch is to help me get this brighter. But I go to that switch, I know something's going to happen, right? Most of us as entrepreneurs, we don't believe that. We don't believe that there's enough money out there for all of us. We don't believe that the things that we're investing in are going to give us the ROI. Therefore, it doesn't.
Wow, that is very deep right there, indeed. Sure. I want to ask, do most potential clients, or do most clients in general, have the infrastructure to truly benefit from your experiences? I I know a lot of times people may think that they can from you, it ends up probably not being good fits, but in general, is is the infrastructure there to truly benefit from your type of services? It's in general, would you
Great
say?
question. We were actually having this conversation last night with some partners on this other project that I'm working on. And the people that we were discussing, they don't, right? We didn't ask those questions. We didn't ask, like, is your business legitimate? Is it registered with the Secretary of State in some state, right? Are you paying taxes? Do you have a fee structure? Do you have a product? Do you know what you're working with? So I ask those questions before I even decide to work with a person, because for me, it's a two-way street, right? We got to get a feel for each other. And if I'm not vibing with you, you're probably not vibing with me, or vice versa. And we get to come to a mutual decision like, hey, I don't think this is going to be a good fit. And, or, when you get these things in place, then come back and see me.
Wow, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is probably an easy question here, but I'm sure it's easy, yes. But do you find that your expectations are healthy from your clients? And the reason why I'm asking that is for folks who are really serious about inquiring about you, possibly, or anyone similar to you, is I want them to really just sit back and think, okay, it's a lot of us procrastinate a lot out there. A lot of us say we want to do a lot of things, especially since we're still in the new year. I want to take over the world. I want to start this business. I want to do this, do that, and a lot of things sometimes just fall short. And sometimes we probably put too much on ourselves, probably more than we can try to bite off more than we can chew. But you find your expectations to be healthy? And that's really a intuitive question there. But for folks who are wanting to really just do better, if they hire you or someone else, do you find them to be healthy?
Well, here's what I'll say, and they don't even have to hire me to get this, right? If you show up, like, first of all, you got to show up for yourself. And I think that you all can understand what I mean when I say that. A lot of times we do not show up for ourselves. We don't do the things that we say that we're going to do, right?
Mhm.
Therefore, we don't trust ourselves. And so we want to give our trust away to someone else so they can fix it for us, right? And then we get to blame them when we don't have the results that we want. So what I'm proposing is that you take full ownership in what it is that you say that you want. You do the work that's required, and if you don't, you take responsibility for not doing the work. right? So expectations, my expectations are you do what you say you're going to do, right? You show up the way that you say you're going to show up, and you will get the results. When we show up consistently, we have the feeling, we get into action, and from the action, we have the results that we say that we want, but we have to do it consistently, and we have to do it from a place where we're not attached to the outcome. And all of that is, it sounds very simple, and it is simple, but it's not necessarily easy because we got to retrain the brain.
I agree. A
Yeah.
lot of a lot of gems are dropping there, but we're gonna definitely come back and conclude this conversation on the other side. But thank you, folks, for tuning in to Clay's Couch tonight with Miss Mia LaMotte. Welcome back to Clay's Couch here. This is your host, Clay D, the one and only coming back at you the best way I know how. And then we're here concluding our conversation with Miss Mia LaMotte from LaMotte International. Thank you for your time this evening, Miss Mia.
Absolutely.
Just to continue the conversation here, we were just talking about just your coaching and your coaching style and all that. One thing I do remember from when we had first met, when we were at a round table, you had discussed, and I don't know if you remember this or not, about taking accountability when describing about what one could do better to improve his or herself. And I've actually have started to take this, really just start applying this to my own life every day. Instead of saying, for instance, and I'm trying to paraphrase just from our little roundtable discussion where we had first met, I had mentioned that something like to the extent of, sometimes, and I'm just quoting myself here, you get into a people out there get into a jam and you do this and you said, no, say, instead of saying you or people, say I instead. And when you say I, you are taking accountability. And therefore, when you take accountability, you improve and you do better. And I've started really catching myself even ever since then, up to the present day, in the few months since then, since that event, every time I've caught myself saying people or you or they, I really start replacing it with I. And I've learned that when I've started to do that, say I almost said you, but then I caught myself by mine. When I say I
Yeah.
realize that I have a lot more power and autonomy instead of deflecting blame. Because after a while, yep, sometimes things in life, even in business or entrepreneurship or in our professional lives, you if a job is not a good fit and you kind of go around through several of them, I can't keep saying, see there again, I can't keep saying that it's because of them. At some point, the common denominator, common theme, yeah, of course you can have your one outlier or a couple things, but after a while I might have to start saying that it's me and maybe not them, for sure. And that's the only way you can truly grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So here are like some final thoughts that I'm going to leave with you. To your point about taking personal responsibility or accountability. Accountability is accounting for why you're where you are. It's not about blame. It's not about anything, right? It's really just about you saying, you know what? I got into a car accident today because I woke up late. I hit the snooze button 3 times. I spilled coffee on my pants. I did the like. You can account for the reason why the thing happened, right?
Mhm.
You take complete ownership, and you know that in the future, like if you want to avoid car accidents, then you should probably not hit the snooze button. This is like a very simple example. But if you look at even bigger things in your life and you look at, and not from a place of blame, from a place of accountability, like stick to the facts and stop making things mean things that they don't mean. That's one of the things that we do as humans, and that gets us tripped up, right? So we just take that and then stick to the facts, account for it. You know what? Next time I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and let it and be done with it, right? So that's one thing that I'll say about that. The other thing I'm going to say is like when we think about change, and I heard you say better, more, all of those things. In the transformation world, and when we're talking about transformation, there is no more, there is no better, there is no less, there is none of that. It's you've completely turned into something different or into someone different. If you think about the butterfly and the caterpillar, it does not go back into the cocoon and become a caterpillar again. It's a butterfly now. So when we think about looking at ourselves and looking at how we want to show up in the world, if we're somewhere where we don't want to be, like what is it going to take in order to transform that and not just change it? Because if you change it, you're moving, as Ray Blanchard, one of my mentors, would say, you're moving furniture on the Titanic, and you're not actually making a transformation. You're just shuffling stuff to make it look better, but you still like need the transformational work, right? And then back to the conversation before the break. When we talk about how long it takes someone to get it, or for someone to transform, or for someone to get the coaching, um, my friend that I'm here with, she and I were in the same coaching program for 3 or 4 years. And she had done some other work with this particular coach before I even met her. And some of the stuff that we learned or were introduced to while working with this woman, we're just finally integrating or embodying it. So this actually happens with anyone who is trying to up level or who is trying to transform. We don't we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know how to apply these things until we actually can embody it. So I believe that to all of the questions that you've had about how long does it take, what's it going to take, when you're committed, you're committed. If you're interested, you're not committed. And I believe that a lot of people do things because they're interested in it, but they're not willing to go the extra mile. They're not willing to do all that is going to be required in order for them to have what they say they want to have. And I see that Clay jumped off, or his connection got lost. So I'm just going to wrap up for him based on what we talked about. And I will take questions if you guys have any. And I love that Natasha said to take ownership. Yeah. Once we take ownership of our own lives, we have no one else to blame, but we also don't have to give anyone else credit, right? Other than what you may believe spiritually. I totally agree. If someone is truly serious, these things, they do not have a problem doing the do. And I'm going to take that a step further, Tate. In the work that I do, it's more about who are you being and not necessarily the actions that you're taking or the things that you are doing. We have what I've come to understand is that we get to be a certain person in order for those things to show up in our lives. So if you want $1 million business, you get to be the kind of person who has $1 million business. So what does a person who has $1 million business do? How do they think? How do they act? How do they do their morning routines? How do they do their weekends? Right? So those are the things to start thinking about. What is the crazy business line you helped to develop? Crazy business line? I'm not sure. What crazy business line? I haven't. No crazy business lines I've done. Top tips that I can give. Like again, craziest. The biggest tip that I can give you about personal branding is just that. Like get personal with yourself. And I'm talking from getting to know how you like your eggs to uncovering what ideas or what beliefs you have that are not yours. What traditions do you still follow that are not aligned with who you are today? Just because I love this quote, I forget who said it, but they said traditions are like peer pressure from dead people. Go live your life for you. So once you make that decision, like what does your best life look like? What does your best life look like with you being in charge of it and not mom in your head or dad in your head or family or your financial situation, right? What does that look like for you? And making a decision that you're going to go for it. That's the number one tip. Um, how do I get people to stop fearing the loss of money in order to grow and develop? That's just it, right? So you have to flip the fear. You have to flip, like, what are you fearing about loss of money? Why are you fearing a loss of money? You are investing in yourself. So number one is switching the mindset about how you see what you're doing with the money. You see it as losing money, but it's actually investing in yourself. And then taking that investment and compounding on that investment. So continuing to do work, continuing to grow. A lot of people will join a program and not do the work. I've been there, done that, right? But now that I know that is serious business, and if I really want what I say that I want, I'm going to do the work now. So don't spend the money if you're not going to do the work. I will definitely say that. But if you're serious about doing the work, spend the money. It's an investment. It's not a loss of money. And then how you can connect with me. Great question. So I'm on Instagram as Mia LaMotte Disruptor. And you can also connect with me online, which is www.mialamotte.com. And LaMotte International has a Facebook page as well. And then if you are a woman or a female who is in the entrepreneurial space, you can definitely join us in the Disruptor Society Facebook group. Well, I do free trainings in there all the time, but we're talking about brand, we're talking about growth mindset, we're talking about all the things that I kind of touched upon tonight, but really take deeper dives into that.
Yep. And sorry about that. There, we had technical difficulties, but of course, what would a virtual world be without that? But anyway,
Yeah.
but yes, you definitely made a lot of sense there. I did catch what you were saying about the accountability and what you were talking about there. But the time has come about now. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. But for anyone in the audience who is wanting to reach out to you for a coaching session, a 30-minute conversation, or they want to possibly hire and retain your services, how can they reach out to you, Mia?
Yeah, I've given them the contact info, and on my website there is a link to schedule a call with me and see if we're a great fit. So I'm happy to have a conversation. You know, when we were at the conference that we were at, I was just going to give you the phone number. So I'm very accessible and down to earth. So don't think that this is going to be one of those kinds of sessions because it's not.
Got it. Well, thank you very much, Mia, for providing the guests with all of that there. And definitely, please do follow Mia on social media and definitely reach out for any personal branding services or questions that you may have. And thank you again for joining us tonight, Mia, while in Mexico. Enjoy the rest of
I appreciate it. So much fun.
Definitely enjoy the rest of your time there. And thank you all for tuning in tonight, folks, on Clay's Couch right here. And we'll be back next week at Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern.